Yeah, when I was asked to speak here, I was thinking, yeah, I'll make a case for packaging and for recycling, and I think I will agree with some points that Jean-Marc and Maya made, and maybe eventually disagree with some. That's really what I was trying to transmit today, and I will repeat some of the mantras that you mentioned. I mean, I think it's maybe not 100% fair to compare today's situation with the situation 100 years ago, where our consumption behavior was completely different. And the packaging that we use today is pretty much linked to this consumption behavior, and also a correlation with growth and with proto income is not necessarily a cause and effect. It's a symptom of the way how we're living today, and I find it hard to imagine how our society today would look like or could look like without packaging, where products, not only food, all products actually are produced in places far away from the places where we use and consume them. And we cannot afford to have bigger losses than we already have today between the sites where we produce and the sites where we consume and use. Because the footprint of the materials, the footprint of the ingredients, the footprint of the goods that we produce is so much higher than the footprint of the packaging. So there is a need for packaging to preserve food, to conserve, to make ready for transport, also to inform consumers. And there are two big issues associated with packaging, and fully aware of that, and fully agree also, which is environmental performance in terms of greenhouse gas emissions and other indicators, and packaging materials leaking into nature. And I think we are all sick of seeing pictures of turtles with plastic around the neck. Personally, I'm also sick of seeing glass on the floor. I'm cycling a lot, about 10,000 kilometers every year. And I can tell you, cycling in a city with glass on the floor is no fun. It can end deadly. Yeah? Should we ban glass? Just a question to consider. Let me elaborate a little bit on the first point, greenhouse gas emissions and environmental performance. Like I said before, the big footprint is mainly sitting in the materials that go into our products. In food, there's sometimes a factor of 10, 20 of footprint that is sitting in the product versus in the packaging. Can we afford to lose more food? No, we heard already we have so much food waste, we cannot afford more, and we cannot packaging or lack of packaging be the reason to spoil more food. Not to speak of other goods. I mean, the footprint of the packaging of a laptop is 1,000 times smaller than the footprint of the laptop itself. We cannot afford to lose a single laptop because it's damaged during transport. We simply cannot. So the packaging is needed here, and environmental performance is something that we need to optimize, and emissions we need to reduce. And here's another concern, and now careful, I'm having a coming out here. Because by training, I'm a plastics engineer. And what hurts sometimes is really the plastic bashing that we have, and the effect that we seem to ignore that for many applications, it's the most efficient packaging material that we have. And I can tell you, I have done the LCA for ketchup and mustard that we, as Nestlé, are selling in aluminium, in glass, and in plastic squeeze bottles. And I can tell you that the plastic squeeze bottles are by far the most performant in terms of emissions. They are, by far. And try to sell that to the marketing team. No way, huh? Because we're bashing plastics in the public discussion, and that doesn't help, obviously, this discussion. So on the second issue, on packaging materials entering into the environment, obviously, less packaging is good for that. We're going to reduce packaging. We're going to reduce the amounts that are entering nature. Reuse and refill is good because it's keeping materials in the closest loop that you can have. Is it going to solve the problem? No. It's going to reduce it gradually, but it's not going to stop it. And so what is it then that is going to stop it? What is the solution? And for me and for us, it is primarily really recycling and giving the materials a value so that they are not discarded and that nobody can afford to just simply discard them. So what do we need to get there? First point, materials need to be recyclable, and we're still discussing about the definition of what that means. But I can tell you, it's a major hassle for me in my everyday life, and I'm looking at the packaging we're using in more than 100 factories in Europe and it used to be also Middle East and North Africa, but now it's primarily Europe. And even changing a flexible structure from something that is based on PET, where we're sure it's not ever going to be recyclable, to something else is a huge investment. It's a huge investment, and we're taking it, and we have, as company, promised to have all our packaging recyclable by 2025. And this is keeping me busy every day, I can tell you. Second is create demand, because creating demand is going to give the materials a value. And that's why we also have promised to have significant amount of particularly plastics coming from recycled sources. PET is a very obvious one, has been mentioned already. There is a market, there is the technology, there is a certain capacity that will need to grow. And by creating the demand and taking up significant amounts, and it's, in our case, probably going to be in the range of 100,000 tons in 2025 of just PET, we will create the capacity that is needed to do that. But there are also other materials. There are the polyethylenes, there are the polypropylenes, there are other materials where recycled content really needs to grow, and we've promised to do that. Beyond that, we have made a promise also to look at the infrastructure and help building this infrastructure, which is not our core business. We are not operating any recycling plants, we're not operating a PRO, we're producing food and we're packing food. So this is something that is a little bit more tricky to achieve and a little bit more tricky to put in a KPI or in a measure, but also significant amount of time that goes into speaking with the operators of recycling, sorting facilities to see how we can get that better and how we can build this infrastructure not only in Europe but worldwide. So a few thoughts of what would help in order to achieve that. Obviously, we need the right framework, and it's good to see, Maya, that you're working on that full speed and with a lot of passion, with a big team and big impact assessments. So we're all looking forward to see what that will give us. And I think what we would need there is really to have a clear framework that gives clarity and security for everybody who needs to make big decisions, big investments. So we really need to know soon what it's all going to be about, specifically for the different type of materials. I mean, if I look at some of the packaging materials that we use, for example, PET, it's straightforward. Flexibles, it's not so straightforward. And if in a certain geography there is an ambitious recycling rate for plastics, what's going to be recycled first? The PET bottles. And we just heard, what is it, 60% in EU? So if we're making it more ambitious, it will be 80, 90. But still the flexibles will be in the incinerators or even worse in landfill. So I think what could help this is really to have a little bit more specific targets for the difficult to recycle items. Second point that would help, obviously, is chemical recycling. I mean, we are a food company. We cannot bring anything into food contact that has the slightest risk of not being safe for consumers. And whoever has been to a sorting facility where our yellow bags or whatever the color is are being brought to be sorted, is hard to imagine that these materials that arrive there and that are very, very stinky, very contaminated, have in many cases not been made for food in the first place, could become recycled into food application easily. So chemical recycling is for sure a way to get there. there are concerns about its environmental performance, about the energy that is used there, about the emissions that it's going to create. And we have to learn to manage that, to improve it, and to bring it to a level that is better than just using virgin resources all the time. EPR, for us, one of the key elements, extended producer responsibility, our responsibility to deal with the end of life of the packaging materials that we bring to the market. At the end, I mean, the consumer is paying the bill because the fees that we are paying for this end of life handling, of course, is part of the P&L of the product, and it is going to be paid by the consumer. But I mean, we are here to make sure that this is done properly and that this is done at the highest possible recycling rates that we can achieve. And I think it's a good mechanism, because everybody who's putting product in the market is contributing using EPR, and this is going to help to inject the money into the system to make things happen, to build the capacity that is needed. And I think now it's the right moment to do that, because it's high on the public agenda. It's being discussed everywhere. The legislator is addressing it, which is good. And we as a company, and many other companies as well, have made commitments to drive it in that way. So let's just make it happen all together.